Yo guys, I've got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new top 10 video here in the month of December on the channel. Now already you can tell that there's a backdrop change from the previous video I made, and expect a lot of those inconsistencies going through day in day out because I recorded some in advance and then others I'm recording whilst I'm going to be at home for the month of December. But all those inconsistencies aside, it's the second day in and we're already kicking off some of the collaborations I have planned this month. So without further ado, let's switch on over so Saving the Skylanders can explain further what we aim to do for today's top 10 video.
What's going on, guys? I'm Victor of Saving Skylanders, as you may know, and today I am on Ignite the Fires channel once again, and to bring you another ranking video, which I always enjoy. So what's better than to bring two Skytroopers together and do a ranking of some Skylanders, or what could have been Skylanders. So today we are bringing you the top 10 NPCs that would have made great Skylanders. So I don't want to waste any time. I've wanted to do this video for a while, and what's better to do it with Ignite. So yeah, let's get right into it. So my first one is the fun and lovable Tessa. Now Tessa, I could see being very fun because you've seen some cutscenes. She has some hand-to-hand combat. She can put up a fight for sure. So I'm thinking her main attack would be, you know, hand-to-hand combat, no weapons, a lot like Terrafins. And then come in with a second attack that maybe like throw an acorn or something like that. 'Cause she had a lot to do with like acorns and stuff in Trap Team. And then lastly would be her big striking ability, and she has Whiskers the bird. So what's better than to call down Whiskers like Airstrike? I don't know if you can see him over there, but Airstrike over there. Call down, maybe do one big like, you know what? Now thinking about it, it could be like Evil Eyes Whiskers. When it comes down, it could do that, you know, wave damage, but it would be good Whiskers. So yeah, I think she would be really fun, and it could be really creative at the same time.
So to kick off my portion of the list right here, I have Brock! Now, for those of you who think that this is a run and that Brock as an NPC wouldn't transition into a Skylander very well, I have only one response for you. Wrong answer, pal! Yeah, that's right, I bring in for wrong answer twice because that truly puts emphasis on Brock's personality-driven style. It would be so great to hear Brock yell wrong answer to his enemies as he charges straight through them, because that's one great thing they could introduce into his moveset, a nice charge. But on top of that, he can even stomp to shake a bridge, so no doubt if he stomps the ground hard enough, he can create huge like earthquakes and eruptions similar to that of Head Rush. So Brock could make for a really interesting Earth Skylander, again with a fun personality. That's the main thing I love about this NPC, really, and it's why I would have loved to have seen him as a Skylander.
Now this one's one of my personal favorite NPCs. I have a whole category of videos called Super Ninja Commando Test, which is from his catchphrase, and that is Buzz. So at first, you know, he's always walking around with his crutch. He's even shot with it in the first level of Trap Team. So I'm thinking that would be his main attack. He'd have like a shotgun kind of in his crutch, and I'm thinking it would be comparable to like Zook's bazooka. But very powerful, just like Zook's. And then I think he'd summon some minions, which could be the Mabu Defense Force, which would work out very well. Summon two of them and come down and fight with you. And then lastly, since he's so like military minded, and I think he could like lay some turrets, maybe like 3 at a time, kind of like Gorilla Drilla, and if Sprockets were good, Sprockets, but they wouldn't take that long. Like they could be like Gorilla Drillas where he just plants them in the ground and then they start shooting or something like that. I don't know, I figured he'd be really creative and really fun, and for me, of course, he's on this list because I would have loved to be able to play as Buzz.
Well, I have some really harsh light on me right now. That is kind of like how lighting works. I have no fill light beside me. But speaking of all this light, you know how trees grow? Well, it's because of the light that helps them generate photosynthesis. And speaking of trees, actually, Arvo has his very own prototype figurine in the Toys for Bob development suite. And that is basically what gave me inspiration for this top 10 list in the first place. So of course, naturally, Arvo is going to be on the list as well. We already know how awesome a figurine of his could have looked, and gameplay could have been excellent. He could have sprouted flowers, he could have maybe tossed rocks at enemies, you know, as he kind of comes up from the ground. I guess that's very similar to Terrafin, how he can burrow under the ground and then, you know, kind of belly flop out of it is the words I was looking for. I was about to say arise, which definitely isn't a word. But with that being said, Arvo definitely would be a life Skylander, of course. The sprout and flowers kind of made that pretty obvious. But I just love the personality, as voice acting truly does bring a lot of personality and character to this character. So yes, he definitely could have made a really fleshed out toy with a really fun moveset to really break into. The only problem is that he's a tree, and we've seen tree Skylanders before, so I don't think he would have been all that unique, but outside of that, he most certainly would have been great, hence why he's here on my spot for my portion of the list, mind you.
Now I have a couple that I think will surprise people, and this one's I think is number one, because you don't think of her as being combat oriented, because she's not. But if they were to tweak her to make her a Skylander, I think they could do it in a successful way that you'd want to play as, and that is Persephone. I think Persephone could be very fun. She's very magic oriented, so obviously she'd be the magic element. I think she could have, like, her main attack be like these magic balls or something that I thought could be comparable to like Pot Thorn, where they automatically go to the enemy, like they're kind of like heat-seeking missiles, but there would be like little magic spells, and maybe every one of them would slow down the enemies. Excuse me. And then maybe a teleportability, like Hoot Loop, like where she'd disappear, show back up somewhere else, maybe do a little bit of damage around her. And then, obviously, because you saw her evil version or the weird version in Trap Team, use it is like the shield aura, where you could protect yourself and maybe, you know, you're playing 2-player, 3-player, I don't know what Skylanders goes up to, but it could shield you and everybody around, maybe heal you while you're in it, and nobody can attack you, and then maybe when you release it, like High Volt, you could do some damage. So, yeah, I think she could be fun, and I think it would be, you know, people are probably surprised I'm talking about Persephone right now when I can't stand her as an NPC.
Now here's the thing, boss fights that didn't return for Trap Team or Imaginators can count as NPCs because those are characters that you fight against but you don't get to play as, hence they are non-player characters. So of course I'm going to pick one of the boss fights from the Skylanders franchise as an NPC that I would have loved to have seen as a Skylander, or better yet, as a trappable villain in Trap Team or a rehabilitated villain in Imaginators. So I'm talking about Miralda. She's very mesmerizing, hence the name, because in the Swap Force she by far has the best boss fight of the game, because it's so dodging orientated, it doesn't really involve that much combat, and that's what's so creative about it. But because of that, they've brought about several different attacks she could use. She could summon her spinning dancers, create her explosive chicken things, and just run puppets along straight lines that then enemies are just torn through by them. It's such a unique gameplay palette that they could have worked around with. And on top of that, the character itself is really cool. Imagine being able to play as that model in something outside of racing in Superchargers. You know, I'm talking about full-on playable in the levels here. I understand that she was technically playable, but still, those do not count. I should have made that more explicit in the rules.
I've made a huge mistake.
When it comes to Miralda, she would just have a really cool gameplay style. I would have preferred Imaginators, where she would have got her own figurine, because it could have been just so detailed, so cool to look at, with so many sharp contrasting colours. But even in Trap Team, where you could have put a trap on the portal, captured her and played along with those spinning dancers and explosive chickens. Better yet, we needed an extra magic villain in Trap Team because that cast is rather small for that game, so Miralda just would have made absolute sense, and it's a shame we didn't get to see all that.
Now this one, I think this NPC has been forgotten unless you go back and play SSA. A lot of these characters will come from SSA that I have chosen. It's General Robot. Now, General Robot, I always liked him since I was a kid and I played the game. Thought he was a really cool NPC, and so when Ignite asked me to do this collab, I thought, like, what can I do to make him awesome? So General Robot, he's literally a robot, so you could add any type of armor you wanted to him, any type of guns. So that's what I did in my head. I kind of created him as an Imaginator. But in my mind, I'd created maybe, you know, 2 like machine guns on his sides, so he could shoot like kind of like Drobot. But Drobot's super overpowered, so maybe General Robot would be super overpowered. And then maybe 1 large mortar shot. like kind of like Zook, but one, like just a straight up nuke. Just comes out of his back, lands in front, like destroys the whole screen. Does like, you know, a big amount of damage. And next would be like a self-destruct explosion. Kind of like not Popthorn, like Countdown. Countdown, how you hold it down, it shakes, and then huge explosion. So I'm thinking heavy time damage out of General Robot, which I like big damage, I like ranged attack, so if this was a Skylander, it'd probably be my favorite.
So for the runner-up on my list, Crypt Crusher is going to be proud about this one because I'm bringing in Flam Bam from the Secret Suicide Supreme Sting. That's right, he only appears in one level and yet somehow he's one of the most memorable NPCs of the entirety of the Skylanders franchise. You only speak with him for Chomp Chest's quest as well as a game of Sky Stones, but already you can tell what kind of character he is. He's a fun character. First of all, I love the dialogue delivery of his voice actor. He's just really bringing a lot of life to his character. It makes him feel fleshed out. It almost feels like there's a backstory behind his character that wasn't explored but could be done with a Skylander. Plus, he's a dragon. I love dragons, so that's an instant win. It would have been a detailed figurine with an awesome moveset, and better yet, you would have wanted to play as a character because it's a personality that you want to interact with. Similar to Taekwon Crow and his strengths as a Skylander. So yes, that's why Flam Bam comes in as the runner-up on my portion of the list, mind you.
Now my last one, and this is going to surprise a ton of people, Quigley. Calm down. Alright, no. It's not Quigley. That would be absurd to throw a kid on the battlefield. But no, speaking of battlefield, Snuggles. Now I had a hell of a time creating this one, and it was really fun because I've always liked Snuggles. I like how he literally gets abused all the time. Let's turn this back on so we can look at our legendary igniter. Snuggles. I'm thinking maybe he went through some training camp. Maybe he turned out to be like that secret agent that, like, you know, you think of when you think of a secret agent. So I'm thinking his main attack, you could give him some nunchucks, have him use them like Smolder Dash's whips. I feel like, you know, fast back and forth. It could be a lot of fun. And then since he's a secret agent, make him go invisible like Stealth Elf, and then come out of it and do some whip attacks, or not whip attacks, nunchuck attacks that could be like whips, you know, like Smolder Dash. And then lastly, like have these like parachute bombs, because you know that Mabu always like come down in these red and white parachutes all the time. So maybe, just maybe, you could have like bombs that slowly drop like shroom booms, like his I forget what they're called, but his little mushrooms that come down real slow. Maybe they could be parachutes, and maybe every once in a while, maybe his soul gem would be like every once in a while it drops down like food or gold, but overall, bombs. I'm really into bombs in this video. Damage. Anyway, Snuggles would be my #1 NPC that I would want to see get a Skylander, just because he's in, I think, all the games other than Swap Force. So it'd be really fun to see a character that we've seen develop over 6 games, 5 games, whatever, become a Skylander. Finally get the chance to save Skylands. Get that, Saving Skylands. Alright, I'm done. Alright. Snuggles, #1 for me. So I hope you guys enjoyed this collab. I know I did. I don't know why I'm holding on to these things still. Here, I'm going to do a zoom. Just for you, Ignite. Thank you for having me on again. It's always a pleasure, and this was a lot of fun. I'll plug myself once and one time only. I'm Victor of Saving Skylands, and I'll see you guys soon.
Snuggles, are you kidding me? You pick Snuggles when Blobbers is available? The greatest Mabu to ever exist? Why would you pick Snuggles over Blobbers? Do you know how insane that character is? He can Falcon Punch a boss fight that Skylar's about to be defeated by, and basically just become the most powerful entity in the known universe, and you choose Snuggles over that power trip? Why would you not want to play as Blobbers when he's just so legendary? I mean, I wouldn't, because he's not even my #1. I could not, in good conscience, end off this video without Glumshanks being on the list somewhere. Now, Miralda might have been a bit of a stretch as a villain that did come back in Superchargers, but wasn't really playable on her own accord because she was exclusively available in Racing, and let's be honest, Racing does not count, as I mentioned earlier. But with Glumshanks, he has even more potential than Miralda because of all of the past you can draw upon for him. It's a shame he wasn't a villain in Trap Team. It's a shame he wasn't playable in Imaginators when Chaos was. Who would want to play as Chaos when you can play as, instead, the most powerful being in the universe besides Blobbers, I mean Glumshakes. I mean Blobbers would just be too overpowered. You just feel sorry for the enemies, placing him on the portal and just seeing them drop dead from intimidation by such a raw force of power. But with Glumshanks, you know, you could at least have fun. The enemies just wouldn't drop dead from pure intimidation as soon as you put them on the portal, and you could beat them up with all sorts of his, like, maybe machinery from his evilized version. Or you could have him just bring out the pickaxe that he wrecks the tracks with in Lava Lake's Railway. You could even use quips and sarcasm to bore his enemies to death, quite literally. You know, there are tons of interesting things they could have done with Glumshanks, and I would have loved to have seen it, hence why he's hitting #1 on the combined list right here. Hey guys, I'm coming in for this custom outro voiceover for once so I can thank Saving Skylanders for his excellent input into this video. Find the link to his channel in the description below, and whilst you're there, be sure to hit that subscribe button for both our channels. Let's see if we can skew that awful ratio of mine a little bit. Anyways, I want to close off with some honourable mentions, starting with the Archean Weapon Master, who's interesting based on just how mysterious he is, which is why I think they couldn't have expanded him into a full Skylander. Besides, we have Enigma for that purpose, but his toy would have looked so incredibly awesome, and the moveset for a character like this could have involved practically anything, and I love that amount of potential. But next up there is T-Bone. I love his style of humour, and it could have made for a really personality driven Skylander, but he's just a generic skeleton though, and I can't really imagine him being mixed up all that heavily design wise to create for a unique and standout Skylander figure. Though I do think his moveset has great potential. He could swing around the skeleton key like a sword, summon spiders, and perhaps even unattach himself like a Crusher's rock slide ability. Finally, I thought for another villain that it would be cool if Count Moneybone was seen as a Skylander. I mean, he's a bit of a technology nut, so imagine a Skylanders game where Skylanders had dual elements, so Count Moneybone could be both tech and undead at the same time. He could create zombies out of enemies that fight for him, and build massive mechs. Think Mastermind combined with Sprocket, and that's why I didn't choose him in the end, because combining those two garbage characters would only result in an even bigger piece of garbage. So now, with that having been said and done, the video is indeed coming to an end, but fear not, you can watch another one by clicking on screen now. And one final shout out goes to all my Blazing Knights and Scorching Dragons, whose support continues to inspire me and helps make this content possible. I truly appreciate every last one of you, and until the next video arises, peace!